Hello everyone, and welcome back to my channel, where everything you're about to hear and see has been done in one take. I'm your host, the One Take Man. Today's video is kind of a loose follow-up to last week's video, linked to that in the iCard above, where I went into a brief overview of the sci-fi series known as Farscape. I'll try to keep references to that video as small as possible. Partly because I want this video to be as self-contained as possible. Partly because, well, I don't know, it makes my life a little bit easier. Before I get into the actual meat of this video, which is where I go over the top 10 Farscape episodes, I first want to go over first want to mention, rather, some other episodes. One dishonorable mention and 4 honorable mentions. The dishonorable mention is Scratch and Sniff, the episode that many people in the fandom call the worst Farscape episode, though I still enjoy it as, can be fun. And as for the honorable mentions, these are The Way We Weren't, which reveals some aspects of some characters' backstory, and more precisely how hypocrisy has influenced them, and how the consequences of that hypocrisy now come back to haunt the rest of the main characters out of their minds, which is the obligatory mind swapping episode where we see characters acting not like themselves, obviously. And I think SF Debris once said that this episode can be interpreted as the actors themselves reacting to the characters. The Ugly Truth, which explores the opinions the characters have to the other characters in a crime-drunk setting. And last but not least, Mental as Anything, one of the last episodes of the whole series, which does bring some building blocks towards the finale, but is more relevant for the fact that it finally closes out one particular main character's story. And with that out of the way, it's time to mention the actual top 10. These are not necessarily my 10 favorite episodes. Rather, these are the episodes that I think have the best story, best characterization, best best developed the long-term sort of storylines that this series has developed. So let's get into it. Number 10. At number 10 we have Green-Eyed Monster, Season 3, Episode 8. This takes place over a time in the series when the crew is split up over 2 ships. And on one of the ships the characters on one of the ships form a love triangle that to some extent has been brewing ever since the first episode. And this time, this episode that this love triangle conflict finally boils over, and that in a life-to-death situation. And they have to deal both with the external threat and the fact that they don't really know who exactly to trust. It is a bit melodramatic at times, and I will admit I'm probably a bit biased because this is the first full Farscape episode I've seen, but I have seen it since. Even in the context of the whole series, I still say it holds up, and I still say it is a good enough episode to where I can count it among the 10 best. At number 9, we have Won't Get Fooled Again, Season 2, Episode 15. Early Farscape in particular had a lot of episodes where various characters were stuck in illusions or simulations. And I have to say this episode is the best of this kind. It sees the protagonist come back to Earth, only a lot of the other main characters, who may remind you are alien, are also among them, but them being alien is neither acknowledged nor recognized. And so the protagonist realizes that that he's in some kind of simulation and tries to get out. What makes this episode unique is the fact that it uses a lot of the premises that Farscape has already built up around these kinds of episodes and turns them on their head. And every time the protagonist tries to escape the simulation, not only does it not work, the simulation itself also gets increasingly crazy. And that really helps contribute overall to the otherworldly aesthetic that that Farscape has built around itself, and I can't help but admire that. At number 8, we have I think the first two-parter of this list, Self-Inflicted Wounds, Season 3, Episodes 3 and 4. This episode sees the ship the main characters are on collide and merge with a research ship which studies wormholes, and the crews of these two ships have to find a way to separate them. Only as the episodes go on, it becomes quite obvious that that the crews have differing motivations, and because of their differing motivations, collaboration becomes impossible. So the story turns from a more purely speculative sci-fi story of how to solve this weird part of the setting to a battle for survival. Which also has an aspect of how do we beat this this other thing. And it is a very interesting way to follow. It is very interesting to follow when you look at it through this perspective of shifting conflict and shifting motivations, because the motivations themselves don't actually shift. They just get revealed, and the reveal is not pretty. And when it finally comes to light, yeah, that's when the actual moment of conflict emerges. The stakes become much more severe, and seeing them overcome that is very effective. It's a very effective way to tell the story, and it's very interesting to follow through, which is why it's number 8. At number 7, we have Incubator, Season 3, Episode 11. What makes this episode in particular stand out? Well, 4 words: main villain origin story. The main villain of the entire series so far has proven himself to be interesting in his own way. I won't go too much into him. I just want to say that he definitely deserves to be counted among the great villains of sci-fi history, and I mean right up there with Darth Vader and Khan Yunsing. Like, that is seriously how good he is. So far, before this episode, we, the audience, have been able to see him as cold, ruthless, calculating, tactical, surprisingly creative too, always one step ahead of of pretty much every other character in the series. And we got to see a lot of his drive and his determination and what he can do with those. This is the episode where we see how he got his drive and his determination. And it strangely makes him sympathetic. And it doesn't make him sympathetic in the superficial sense of something bad happened to me and now I want to do bad things to others. No. It's something bad happened to me and I want to make sure those who did it will not do anything like this to anyone else ever again. And that is arguably very relatable, very understandable, and it makes him seem less mysterious. But I would argue it still adds to his menace and to his personality as a whole. It is a very enjoyable episode, and a very enjoyable villain origin story, and it is definitely one of those aspects of him that elevate him to that status I mentioned. At number 6, we have, I think, the first three-parter of this countdown. We're So Screwed, Season 4, Episodes 19 through 21. Because it is right at the end, I won't go too deep into it, except that it tries to do something a previous three-part episode did, but in reverse. Namely, it starts with a pretty small conflict that gradually balloons. However, it balloons because balloons quite organically, actually, because we find out that there are more players involved into this story and in this conflict than we originally anticipated. But because of that, the three-parter in and of itself feels very disjointed, and it is not as interesting or as consistent or as simple to follow as other episodes of the kind. However, I will say that I will commend this this series and these episodes for introducing new plot-relevant details and larger mythos aspects, even now this late into the story, and managing to use them effectively. And also, it has a great deal of knowledge on how to escalate the conflict and the tension, and also add a sense of wonder to it, which is something that I haven't discussed, but which Farscape is actually full of. The idea of, namely this wonder, we're in a new world, and you can do so much stuff here, where this new setting allows for so much things you can do, and yeah, I have to commend it for that, and I have to commend this show for sticking to that even this late in its run. So for that reason, it's the number 6 spot. At number 5, another three-parter, Look at the Princess, Season 2, Episodes 11 through 13. The story here is that the protagonist finds himself engaged to a princess. I won't go into how that goes. And while he is engaged to the princess, he has to figure out whether or not he wants to go through with the engagement, and also how the other characters react to the change that both this revelation and his eventual decision would bring forth. And not just the main characters, but also several side characters, including the main villain, including various other operatives from various other political entities that, to some extent, play a role in this story. I think this episode in particular introduces a second major villainous faction that will play a major role going forward, and this is another episode that once again showcases what Farscape does very well in terms of long-term storytelling, and that it knows what elements to take from previous episodes, and it knows how to slide them in an organic fashion. At number 4, we have the only Season 1 episode on this list, namely Nerve/A Hidden Memory, Season 1, Episodes 19 and 20. And yes, this is a two-parter. I've checked. This episode is also in many ways a continuation of a previous episode, which sees one of the characters get injured. The injuries are revealed in this episode to be a bit more extensive than initially thought, so the protagonist has to infiltrate an enemy base in order to retrieve the cure. While he is there, he gets discovered and interrogated. And the rest of the crew have to save him. What makes the story interesting is the fact that it knows how to use the setting, and the base itself becomes a hub for the story. It brings back a lot of brings back several old characters. It shifts the villain dynamic in that it introduces a new one and relegates the previous major villain to a secondary role in a way that is very believable, and it introduces a new dimension to the conflict, not just for the crew and for their their future story, but also for the series as a whole. This is in many ways Farscape first flexing its storytelling muscles and showing how it builds its long-term narratives. And what can I say? I think it does it in an excellent way. At number 3, we have the highest rated episode that is single part, so to speak, Relativity, Season 3, Episode 10. This episode also takes place in the time when the crew is separated between two ships, but also explores to some extent the reason why these ships are separated. Namely, one of the ships is pursued by a division, a faction of one of the villainous organizations of the series, and that faction is led by someone who is related to the main character. This episode finally sees the confrontation with that leader, and we get to explore a lot of the physical as well as emotional and ideological conflict that emerges between this leader and the various other characters, and go into a more differentiated look into what makes them into what drives each of their actions. This is the most emotionally charged episode of the entire series, but unlike Green-Eyed Monster, which it is also continuing to some extent, I think all of the drama that comes through is really a lot more organic and a lot more easy to follow and understand and relate to, and it is just absolutely crammed with with narrative and dramatic tension. It is, can I say it is the best single part episode of the entire series. At number 2, we have the best two-parter of the entire series, namely Into the Lion's Den, Season 3, Episodes 20 and 21. These episodes see the main characters get invited to an enemy base as guests of honor. Only the purpose of their stay there is to assist the main villains into developing wormhole technology or researching how wormhole transportation would work. Thing is, they are there to sabotage them, and they have to sabotage them without them realizing they're getting sabotaged. So yeah, a lot of high stakes here at play, especially when earlier in the season we find out exactly what you can do with wormhole technology. It is kind of it is a major point in the narrative, and I also have to appreciate the way this episode introduces new players and all the conflicts it explores, not just between the protagonist and the main villain, but also between their extended casts, as well as secondary figures that emerge and play their roles, as it were. Anyway, I'm too far back to just cut it, so I'll just continue. And then we get to the actual high point of the series, and then the falling action. And I have to say, this episode handles falling action better than literally every other episode of the entire series. So it's definitely worth your time and your attention. And it is for this reason that I think it is among the best episodes of Farscape, but not the best. That honor is reserved to, at number 1, Liars, Guns, and Money. Season 2, episodes 19 through 21. Remember what I said about 6 places ago? Well, that there is a three-parter that tries to, towards the end, that tries to replicate the style of another three-parter? Yeah, this is the three-parter it was trying to replicate. It does the same thing about changing the dimensions of the conflict. However, the differences between it and this episode is that this episode changes not just the scope of the scale, not just the scope of the conflict, but also its scale. It starts from a small conflict with a large-ish scope, but eventually it becomes a large conflict with a very small scope, or the other way around. Anyway, the focus overall changes very little. It stays pretty much exactly the same. The crew is doing this to save one of their own, but in saving one of their own, they also have larger responsibilities or hurdles that they have to overcome. There are larger, more substantial consequences to their actions and to what it is they are doing. And in many ways, that reflects itself in the way the tension escalates, and in the ways the conflict itself evolves, and it gives the viewers just what they want, because Farscape knows that while big things are interesting, if you don't explore what motivates them, you're not really doing them justice. And this episode does it just perfectly. Even though the conflict has even though scope and scale change, they always have a good focus of what it is that people should follow, and it knows how to give its audience what it wants. It knows how to reward them for their attention, for their patience, and for the passion they bring into this series. And it is for this reason, for this seamless ability to reward its audience, that the Liars, Guns, and Money three-parter is the best Farscape episode. And that was all I had to say about the episodes at this point. I could go a lot further in the details, not just about episodes, but also about the larger conflicts and themes and character arcs from throughout the entire show. But really, for now, I'm done. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, then go ahead and leave a like. If you have anything you'd like to add, the comment section is widely available. So yeah, go ahead and say anything. I await it. And if you want to see when the next video comes out, then go ahead and subscribe. Maybe also ring the bell or do whatever else YouTube will ask of you. I'll give you a little hint. Next video will be next week. When exactly next week? Well, you'll have to subscribe to find out. Until then, I have been the One Take Man.